Lauren and David both are going to talk about kind of leading organizations through Whiplash when things happen, but they're also going to touch on fundraising through activated communities and experiences with fundraising. So it's going to be very exciting to learn from them. Cocoon is actually an ADP strategic partner. I work for ADP, and their venture fund has invested in Cocoon. So at the end of the presentation, we also are going to hear from ADP Ventures, get a brief overview about their new venture arm. So with that, please welcome Lauren and David to the Friday Coffee Meetup stage.
Thank you, Christy. Appreciate that very much. We are trying a lot of innovative things here, including some remote presentation. And so it might take a moment here to make sure it's all working out well. So please be patient and bear with us. Sorry, real quick here as we're getting this reestablished. Yes. Okay. A couple of things as we are getting this organized and set up. First off, just to let you know, I'm in my home here. I live in San Gabriel Valley. I'm originally from Chicago, but moved here about 20 years ago, and this feels like home to me. I love being in the San Gabriel Valley. And I love doing work with people in the San Gabriel Valley. That doesn't always happen on a regular basis. As an executive coach, I go to where the business is, but the more I can be here, the better. I love this community too. This is my third presentation. Haven't been here since before COVID, I believe, as a couple of other people have mentioned. But this is an exciting time, and I'm really thrilled to be a part of this. And I also want to mention that what is unique and interesting about today is you're going to get to hear a founder and a coach talk about their work together. That's a very confidential sort of thing. And I can't promise anything scintillating or scandalous, but I certainly can promise that this is a unique insight into an experience that normally is inaccessible. Okay. Yeah, get Lauren's video going here.
I've got her pinned, but we're having some internet issues. I'm trying to spoke too soon earlier.
Okay. Let me go ahead and get started here with a little bit of introduction as we're getting Lauren brought into the room here in terms of video. So let me say a little bit about myself. I've been doing executive coaching work and some consultation as well as a part of that for just about 2.5 decades at this point. There we go. We can see you now, Lauren. This is perfect. It's coming together. So my background actually came through a family business. Not many coaches can say that they got started watching their dad do this work or hearing about their parent do this work. So I fell into the family business. Absolutely love it. Decided to pursue then some higher education and organization development. Coaching is a big part of OD, as well as working with larger systems and giant organizations. I work in multiple spaces. I love work with entrepreneurs, so that's really my sweet spot, and I enjoy that. And as you can see in that final bullet point for me, when we do work at Evolution, I'm a part of this organization called Evolution. We're about 60 different coach partners. We don't just look at one dimension of success. We recognize that when people in organizations really grow and thrive, they focus on the individuals, the I dimension. They focus on the culture, the we dimension, what brings people together, what the shared beliefs are. And then we focus on the systems and the processes and structures that support success. We call that the structural, the it dimension. So when I engage with Lauren, sometimes we're talking about her, sometimes we're talking about the culture, sometimes we're talking about the systems. And want to bring some of that learning here to you, some of those outputs today. Let me hand it over to Lauren to do a quick introduction as well.
Thanks, David. And it's so fun to be here. I am excited to test out this virtual format. So thank you all. As David said, I don't know about scandals or scintillating insights, but I was asked to sing this morning as part of audio testing. So there's some high requests from this group, which I like. I'm Lauren. I'm our co-founder at Cocoon, and Cocoon is all about making employee leave something that can be easy and seamless for all of us. Some of you might be parents in the room, more familiar with employee leave from perhaps taking a parental leave. I'm a parent of a 1.5-year-old, almost, not quite, he's almost there. So getting through the most challenging part of being a parent. And that's actually a big part of what inspired my co-founders and I to start the company is we are parents ourselves of very young kids. And we have seen from our friends, family, our own experience that going on leave, whether it's having a baby, whether it's taking care of a sick family member, is just incredibly, shockingly hard. I remember before starting Cocoon, I thought that going on leave was like taking PTO and you would just put out of office in your calendar and show up a few weeks later. But in reality, it is extremely complicated from a legal perspective, compliance perspective, figuring out how to get your income from all these different insurance sources, state sources. It's really, really hard for our customers, HR teams to support their people through this experience. And so Cocoon really makes that easy through our software. And my background is I come from the world of economics, fintech, finance. The reason that I'm particularly excited about the space that we're building in with Cocoon is because at the end of the day, building a family and taking care of your family really, really is a huge financial problem. And I think those of us who live in California, cities like Pasadena, we know that it can be a lot, whether it's childcare, figuring out wills, life insurance, college, all of that. And that's what really brings me to this space. In addition to my personal just story and experience with leave myself, is how can we empower more and more working people to take care of what matters most in their life and have the kind of impact they want in their careers.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Lauren. Appreciate that. We are powering through some tech glitches as we go, and a garbage truck outside. So this very much fits with the theme of today. Don't worry. There's definitely some whiplash going on here in the process. So just so you know, Lauren, you're presenting in kind of a frozen image. You look very peaceful in that frozen image. So your eyes are closed. It looks like you're meditating. So I think that's part of the sort of interesting effect here today. And we're just going to keep going, and we will be resilient through. Right, exactly. Through all that we're experiencing. So thank you, and appreciate everyone's kind of openness to the presentation that we're doing today. Lauren is in SF. That's where she lives in the Bay Area, and that's where the organization is headquartered. Let me lay out a handful of messages. We're starting with the end in mind, and like you to know what we think are some really key takeaways here from the presentation that we're delivering. And I want to tee this up and then give Lauren a chance to share more specifics here about how she has worked through, endured, and succeeded, especially in the last year or so. I think all of you know that learnings and growth come in many different forms and through many different experiences. And I would love to say that all the learnings that I've gone through and my clients have gone through have come through intentionality, coming up with a plan and a program and executing on that. Lots have. As many, maybe even more, have come as a result of unexpected challenge. A crisis strikes. Not something anyone planned for. Let's hope it's not always a black swan event, but that's a big part of learning. And I know in my life, plenty of things I've decided to do, moving out here, going to grad school, joining a startup coaching firm. Those are things I planned on experiencing and wanted to grow from. And then there's just as long of a list of challenges. And the challenges have been just as fruitful and helpful and instructive as the ones I planned for. But you have to engage with them in a way that is deliberate and honest in order to get the learning. So Lauren's going to put some more meat on the bone with that concept. Another is that purpose, passion, right? These P words that have to do with who we are internally, what we stand for, what's meaningful to us. This creates resilience. If people are just chasing a short-term result, if people are just going for something that isn't all that deeply important to them, when things get tough, when challenges emerge, it can be easy to just sort of step aside, step away, move on, or even create a retrenchment, a pulling back, a self-protective stance. But purpose allows us to get through challenging times, challenging experiences, challenging conditions, challenging people. The more you're connected to your purpose, the better. This final learning here, and I'm excited, this is a sort of interesting insight into the executive coach and founder relationship, is we can't get there alone. And that sounds incredibly obvious when you say it in retrospect. In the moment, it's amazing. Even me, I mean, I'm a coach. I get paid to be a supportive partner in a process. I find myself sometimes unintentionally trying to go it alone and just persevere, just bootstrap it, put it all on my back and charge ahead. That doesn't work. And it's a lesson I keep on learning. It's a reason I'm doing this work and supporting people who are doing big things in the world. People are trying to make substantial change. They're not going to get there by themselves. All right, let's keep going and share some more storytelling here about how these concepts and others have impacted Lauren. And let's give her a chance to share some of the background and context for her current role with Cocoon.
Thanks, David. And I think the second message that you mentioned, purpose and passion in particular, really, really resonates with me personally and also with what we're doing at Cocoon. Because at the end of the day, I think those of you in this room many of you are founders, have been through startups, business owners. You know that starting a business is too hard to do something that's trivial, that doesn't matter, that isn't tied to your mission and what your big purpose in life is. And so for me, I wouldn't say that I was born and realized that leave was my big purpose in life. Definitely not. But I will share, in addition to my own experience going on leave, one of the key stories that led me to founding Cocoon was actually my mom's story. And my mom is an incredible scientist and immigrant. And her experience is that my family is mostly in China. And one of the hardest things that she had to experience, I didn't necessarily have as much insight into this as a younger adult until more recently, was my grandma being diagnosed with cancer and the experience of having her be so far away in China during that time. And I remember when I shared to my mom thinking about starting Cocoon and our mission around leave, she shared to me for the first time in her life how one of the things that she most regretted was not taking a caregiver leave when my grandma was diagnosed with cancer. And unfortunately, my grandma very suddenly passed away pretty quickly. And it was something that she wasn't able to really be fully complete with in that way. But I tell you this story because there are so many of us who experience this really intense pull between work and the work that we do and life, whether that's our kids, for me, for example, maybe parents, older parents, for example, other caregiving responsibilities, your own health. And what Cocoon is up to is making it possible for all of us to have the kind of impact we want in our careers, do big things in the world, make change, and also not have that be a trade-off on our family and our health. And so that's what we're all about. And as a working mom who is also building a company. That's ultimately what really motivates me. And just to give you a little bit of history of Cocoon, we were founded in 2020 in the middle of COVID. And so a very, very intense time to really be supporting people through this experience. And ultimately, our goal is to take this industry that has treated people kind of like paperwork, so to speak. I mean, literally like paperwork, so to speak, and make it something that can be seamless and easy and clear. And that is really ultimately what we're up to here. And in terms of our recent trajectory, we've now been building this company for about 4 years, and it's been an incredible ride. We've got about 200 or so incredible customers, names that you might know, whether it's names like Carta or Benchling or Affirm, for example. And I am constantly inspired by our customers and their mission to support their people through these really, really important moments in their lives. So that's a little bit about us. And I'm also looking forward to sharing more on that topic that David mentioned is the crux of today's conversation, which is what does it look like to manage, learn from, and also lead through crisis?
Lauren, actually, we're going to try just a technical switch here on David's Wi-Fi. So I apologize for interrupting, but just give us 1 second.
Yeah. Just a quick pause here, Lauren.
No problem.
Doing you on a hotspot since the Wi-Fi found spaces.
Okay.
So you're looking for other networks. Nexus.
Here?
Yep. And then here's the password. To the single, and then let's see if that switch back up, hopefully.
Okay.
There she is.
Okay, Lauren.
She looks, okay, there we go.
We fixed it.
Okay, I think we are back on track here. Appreciate everyone's patience with this. Lauren, I think we are going to move to 2023 here and understand some of the headwinds and challenges that you and Cocoon were facing.
Yeah. So 2023, I think, was a tough year for a lot of startups for macro reasons in terms of the macro economy just really took a turn for the worse in 2023, especially for tech companies. I mean, I think all of us are aware of the various headlines out there around layoffs and so forth. And a lot of our customers experience that. It's also a year where for Cocoon, we went through a lot of big change. And I am a big fan of the word crisis sometimes, not necessarily the English word, but in Chinese, the word crisis is 危机, which means danger and opportunity. And I think the takeaway here, as David was saying, is that there's really opportunity in the midst of danger, and opportunity for learning, opportunity for change, opportunity for achieving your mission. And that's really what I'm going to share with you all today. And to kind of bring you along for the journey, Cocoon found product market fit incredibly quickly. And I think the need for leave and to make leave easier for HR teams who are managing through it for their companies, and for those of us who need leave, whether it's having a baby or caring for a family member, is huge and desperate, frankly, because the existing solutions are really, really poor. But the challenge is in the first few years of our growth as a company, we got there to about these 200 or so customers using a lot of human power. And I'll give you a little background on that. So to begin with, Cocoon had this hypothesis. We had this hypothesis that in order to empower every working person to take care of the important things in life when it matters most, especially the crazy disability insurance paperwork and state paperwork and so forth that comes with leave, we had to do everything for them, that we had to take every single item off of their plates. And what that led to is us creating this really significant operational effort to file people's claims, for example, on their behalf, and attempt to do every part of the process for them. Now, that worked really well in the beginning because it lived up to this promise of how do we take as much work off people's plates as possible during these times. But what we realized pretty quickly that came to a head towards the end of 2022 and early 2023 as we were scaling the number of customers and the number of employees that we were supporting is it was really not sustainable. And there were a couple of things that were happening. First was we were literally having all hands on deck support parties at the company because we had just too many customers and people to support for the size of our support team.
Hey, Lauren, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, David. I think you were just typing in on something there.
Let's try this again.
Slideshow. I don't know that I can.
Let's try that now.
I think we're back, Lauren.
Okay, great. I'm not sure where I may have cut off.
Yeah, that's hard to say for sure. I'm gonna. You're talking about the paperwork and just the
Doing it for.
and the kind of heavy lift of Cocoon managing the process.
Yeah. So the initial hypothesis was that we would do everything for each person going on leave. And what we quickly found was that was not sustainable. We were having these effectively all hands on deck experiences trying to do things like file claims for people to California's disability insurance, for example, or answer support tickets, for example. And what we realized is that in order for us to actually achieve our mission to empower every working person from, call it like thousands to hopefully in the future millions and hundreds of millions, is that we really had to rethink how we approach this problem. And that's where 2023 was this, in a lot of ways, crisis moment, because we were at this point where the systems were literally breaking at the breaking point. We couldn't sustain them anymore. And so we had to make a really tough decision to actually pause a lot of what we were doing on the new growth side of things and retool the product, frankly. And that involved taking a lot of the pieces that we had previously done via operational teams for people and turning them into software. So for example, how might we make software that makes it super easy for you to navigate a California or a Massachusetts, for example, insurance claim on your own, similar to a TurboTax, for example. And we spent a good part of the beginning of 23 doing that retooling. And it was really hard. It was extremely controversial internally because a lot of the fear was we have something that's working, why change it, right? To a certain extent. And it was really hard because we had to say, hey, we're going to stop a lot of the new feature builds that we're doing to retool the existing product. And that also paused a lot of the scaling and growth that we had been seeing in the first couple of years of our life as a company. And so it was scary. It was hard. We had to migrate almost 200 customers to our new product, our updated product. And it was an incredible, just stressful undertaking. So emerging from that crisis moment, what did we learn and what did we get out of it? Well, what we've gotten out of it is that now we have a product that is scalable to not just thousands of people taking leave, but millions, hundreds of millions, because it's built via software. Whether that's the compliance engine, whether that's payroll, for example, super proud to have our partners at ADP with us today, whether that's navigating insurance claims, for example, end to end, the experience now is powered via software. And that's a really, really big win. Now, the challenge that we have to do going forward is, okay, now that we've got this strong foundation after a lot of challenge and crisis, is to take that foundation and distribute it and grow. And that's part of why we're super excited to have partners like ADP, who serve 1 in 6 Americans in the country, which is pretty mind-boggling number. So an incredible distribution partner for us. But aside from the business wins from this crisis in terms of getting to the point where we can have a product that can scale truly to achieve our mission, what I would say personally for me, there was a big win in terms of a lot of learnings on company building, on my own leadership, on resilience. And I think we have a couple of slides to kind of like go through that, but happy to share some of those learnings with you all as far as what I'm personally taking away from this experience.
Hey, Lauren, if you could, you want to share any of those just personal wins right now with what we have up?
Yeah. Happy to kind of dive into that a little bit, and then have folks, David, you can add on a little bit of extra color as well. So for me, I think the 3 takeaways for me are really, 1, as we talked about earlier, crisis is incredibly scary, but it can also be really, really meaningful opportunity to refine how, as a company, as a team, you're achieving your mission. So it's really rare, frankly, for startups to know from the get-go how they're going to achieve their mission. I think we all have hypotheses around how to do that, but a lot of times it's through crisis that we are able to go back and revisit our hypotheses and adjust them if we need to. And that's what we did at Cocoon. We started out with this hypothesis of, hey, let's do everything for the user, take everything off their plate. It's okay if we've just been up a huge operational team to do that. Quickly realize the challenges of that, not sustainable, not able to get to the scale that we want to in our mission. How do we then retool those pieces via software to make it scalable to millions, hundreds of millions, every working person? And so that was a big, big takeaway from the experience is crisis can be really scary, but it can also be extremely helpful in crystallizing how you're going to get to the mission over the long term.
That's right. Wonderful. Let me, Lauren, jump in and just build on some of those so we can sort of collaborate in this. And I know we need to move in a moment and get our ADP partners in the room. Okay, good. Well, we're doing good with pace here. So I know Lauren talked quite a bit then about how the organization was forced to face, due to a lot of external factors, how their business model was working, and most importantly, how it wasn't, and how it needed to change midstream in a very challenging and disruptive way. So as with most presentations, we're talking about this in terms of it being like, oh, this, of course we needed to do this. And it was hard, but it was necessary. I can tell you from the coaching standpoint, I'm not going to reveal anything, embarrassing for anyone, but like these were tough moments. Lauren and I had conversations where we were both like, wow, this is daunting. We're staring into serious headwinds. And what helped us get through that together in one piece, intact, was a lot of the story that Lauren told earlier. And I know the audio was a little kind of in and out when she was talking about her mother's experience and having to deal with painful choices that were almost impossible dilemmas for her. We went back to that not once every handful of calls or every 2 months, almost every call, because we had to remember why she was on this journey in the first place. That was the purpose. That was the passion animating her and helping her get up and go into the storm, knowing it was going to be a challenging day. It might be worse than the day before. And the upswing here was going to take a while to materialize. It wasn't going to be an instant sort of resolution. So I can just tell you from firsthand experience in the work that Lauren and I did here, getting through massive challenges in 2023, it was, why are we here, right? Like, what led us into this, this coaching relationship? What led Lauren to founding the organization? Because at times it felt like that was the only thing to hold on to. But it sort of re-strengthened the commitment. And the second part was that, Lauren and I have regular calls set. It's sort of a recurring type of thing, and we engage. We have calls like this where the video goes in and out too. But we're doing Zoom sessions for coaching, and as part of my work, and this I sort of like learned through years and decades of experience is, my coaching doesn't fit into 3 o'clock on every Tuesday, right? Like, it would be nice if her challenges only emerged once a week at that time of day on Tuesday. No, they come up when they come up. And sometimes it's not convenient for anybody. I have an always on coaching model, and that's part of the value that is delivered and the opportunities available to people I work with. So there were times where Lauren would send me, ping me a Slack message and say, we need to engage, are you open? Are you available tomorrow? Can't wait until next week. This is essential. And, one thing that I feel like I want my clients to know is that, we're together on this. This is not, you sort of doing your thing and fitting into my prescribed formula as a coach. If you need help now. And if I need to be a firefighter, I'm a firefighter when the building's ablaze. And so I'm very proud of Lauren for making it through very challenging times. And I know the challenges aren't over, but the direction is set. I'm excited that she's even clearer about what's most important to her in her work and with the organization Cocoon. And I'm really also excited about the connection that we made and the sense that we are in this together, and neither one of us has all the answers, but together we'll get there. Wonderful. All right. That feels like a good point to pause and ask Christy if we've got ADP in the room or presentation.
We do. Thank you so much, Lauren and David. We will be hearing more from them during Q&A. Lauren and David, we appreciate your resilience. I know you've had a lot of experience with resilience recently, and we especially appreciate it in this situation here. It shines through. All right, it looks like we have Veni on the line here. Veni, can you just give us a hello?
Yes, of course. Can you guys hear me fine?
Yes. And you know what? Let me make you bigger over here. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Okay. All right.
Perfect.
Can we make her bigger?
Yeah.
Thanks. Please go ahead, Veni.
Awesome. Well,
Introduce yourself as well.
thanks. Sorry, can you hear me fine?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll just dive into it. Well, it's really nice to meet all of you. Christy, thank you so much for including me. Wonderful to see you, Lauren, and now getting to see insights in your support group. So really good to meet you, David, as well. I'll keep this short and relatively brief. So I'm Veni. I'm a director with ADP Ventures and more specifically on the corporate venture capital team. So we are essentially looking to do investments broadly in the future of work, and our mandate is Series A and later. We like to focus on companies that are Series A and B. Our check sizes are quite varied. They at minimum $1 million, we can go up to 15 million. So it really depends on the need of the company. And I think, Lauren spoke about this a little bit, but our goal here is really the strategic value add. We want to work with founders where we feel like we can move the needle for them, but, at the same time, we can create value for ADP as well. And, the beauty of that, that goal is ultimately it is your end user that is benefiting the most. For example, in Cocoon's case, having a good LOA product will go such a long way, for anybody who actually uses or is an employee in any capacity. I've gone through the process of, trying to go on unpaid leave, and it's excruciating, and it's a little wild, how antiquated the system remains even in 2024. So thank you so much to Lauren and Mahima for building that. But that is kind of the brief overview. Partnerships and investment is really the core of how we think about investing in our portfolio companies. So typically, we can partner first and then do an investment, or we can invest first and then, you can basically find your path towards partnership with ADP as well. You can find most of this information, including how to get in touch with us, on our website, which is literally adpventures.com. So if there are any follow-up questions, you also have Christy in the room who works for ADP. You can ping either of us. But yeah, I'll wrap up with that, and happy to answer any questions as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Veni, for being with us today.
Of course.
Okay. All right. So we are going to open it up for Q&A. We love short, concise questions here, not just statements. We like the question. And if you have stories or comments, David is going to stick around after. You can always follow up with him as well. So John is going to come around with the mic and go ahead and give us your brief question.
All right. If you have a question, please raise your hand. I'm going to start out with one for Veni. And Christy has a huge network here in Pasadena. So thank you, Christy, for introducing Veni and having her come on. You mentioned that the check size between 1 to 15 million Series A and later. Is there also kind of like a percentage of ownership that you also want to cap out at when it comes to investing in these early stage companies?
Not yet. And the background to that is we actually formally launched the investment team in October. So we are still early. I think, we are still kind of finalizing and figuring out, if we end up developing those thresholds. But at this point, that's not something we are targeting.
Yes, good morning. This is Patty. My question is for David and Lauren. So David, I understood that you spent a lot of time directly working with Lauren, and I know that this 2023 crisis and this reinvention, right, the shutdown, the reinvention, or the pause and reinvention, how did you bring the rest of the company along? So Lauren has a passion, she has a purpose. How do you bring the rest of the company along during this particular time to engage them, retain them, and help them continue to work through this very difficult time?
Great question. And Lauren, why don't I just sort of set you up here? I think you've got the kind of the big share on this, or the big reveal. But let me tee this up. So great question. As we were coming into 2024 on the heels of that really turbulent ride in 2023, there was a very high stakes all hands meeting. And this was a moment that felt like, I'm not sure it was existential, but it felt like it was in the ballpark, the neighborhood of an existential moment. And Lauren and I, in particular, we had a number of sessions preparing for this all hands. Take it away, Lauren.
Thank you for that question. And I think I could not agree more. At the crux of it, bringing the team along for the journey is everything, right? Team is everything. And for us, as David mentioned, that really culminated in this on-site where in January, Cocoon is about 60% in person, 40% remote, but we had all of our team members come in person for this January on-site. And it was this really, really meaningful moment for us to say, hey, last year was so intense. It was an experience like we've never seen before. All hands on deck in so many ways. A lot of people were just tired. And that tiredness, we needed to help them understand, how do we translate this exhaustion to a certain extent into re-energizing the purpose and where we're going. And so in terms of the how to do that, really it was about helping the team go back to, hey, why are we building this company together? That purpose, right? The P and the mission of the company, and also giving them the milestones for how we're going to progress in the future, right? And so I think a lot of times Dave and I talk about how people are really resilient. They can take challenge, they can take bad news, but there needs to be purpose and there needs to be vision. And so there needs to be how we're going to get there. And that's what we as leadership need to do, is to say, hey, today we're at the base camp of Mount Everest, right? And here's what we're going to do in first half of this year. These are the milestones. Second half of the year, it's going to look like this. And so that was really the picture that I and my executive team painted to the company, is how we're going to get there together. And we revisit that at every all hands. We call them Cocoa times. Every 2 weeks, because that's what it takes as a company to say, hey, here's the journey we're going, and here's the checkpoints and how we're going to be getting there over time.
Absolutely. Let me just put an exclamation point on that. And I'm glad Lauren mentioned that, because I often think it's a Nietzsche quote. I'm probably going to bungle it a little bit, but people can endure any experience with a meaningful enough why. So they can handle ups and downs, they can handle major setbacks and challenges if there's a reason to do it. And it can be easy to lose that connection through all the swirl and whiplash of day-to-day life, especially when you're in startup land and you get hit with, ZERP and all the other, massive challenges coming at everyone. If there's actually a sense of reason for doing this and a purpose that creates that resilience and brings people together. Thank you again.
Lauren, I've got a couple of questions for you. So you talked about finance and fintech, two areas that I'm very passionate about, because I was part of a company, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau was discussed quite often. I'm a financial advisor, so FINRA, that regulates financial advisors, is also something that a lot of regulations, and you also mentioned state regulators. So my question to you is, how are you utilizing, or if you're utilizing AI as part of your operations? Because now we hear about AI all the time and how that is going to make individuals and companies more productive. I'd love to hear some actual use cases as far as Cocoon is concerned.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think great to hear that you're from the fintech background. I just want to comment on one piece, which is I think a lot of times people might be scared off by regulation, but in a lot of ways, regulation can be the seed of innovation. So I think we know this. Veni and I work in ADP's highly regulated space. Christy knows this well. Payroll is highly regulated. Leave is highly regulated. Fintech is highly regulated, right? But that's also what creates opportunity, right? Because compliance is something that everyone needs to do. And so it actually creates a lot of opportunity for businesses to innovate and help other companies and employers solve these really gnarly need to have problems. So I'll just comment on that piece really quickly. And then on the AI front, there's so much opportunity for the use of AI with Cocoon. And I would say with Cocoon, we're still in the early innings there, because the foundation of Cocoon has really been software, our rules engine, so to speak, to translate this regulation into something that can be turnkey for businesses. So I'll give you an example, right? A lot of us are familiar with taxes, like TurboTax, for instance. So I like to say that if you mail a sweater from Seattle to where I'm from, where I grew up in New Jersey, different tax rate than if you mail a laptop from San Francisco to New York, for example, right? Leave is very similar. But the good thing about leave and compliance, for example, is that it's pretty black and white. And so a lot of that doesn't actually require AI. But what is really, really helpful to have AI for, which is what Cocoon is starting to prototype, are things like, how do you translate a human created policy around leave into software or rules, right, that are logic based? So I'll give you an example. We have all of our clients have probably in some cases hundreds of pages of employee handbooks, for example, that describe things like their leave policy, their parental leave policy, their medical leave policy, et cetera. Now, traditionally, but historically in Cocoon's short life as a company, we would have to ingest that information by having a onboarding specialist read that company's documents and work with the HR team to try and codify that into Cocoon's software in terms of the components of their leave policy. Now, imagine a world in which all you had to do was upload that hundreds of pages document into Cocoon's AI. We automatically parse it and embed it into our software for exactly the building blocks needed to support your employees through leave and have it interact with state and government policies. That's what we've already prototyped, and that's a really, really good example of the use of AI in this space.
Thanks, Lauren. And another question is, we'd like to hear some backstory about, how companies are started. In your case, you have a co-founder. We heard a lot about you. Can you talk about how that partnership came about? And then David, you might be able to chime in also about working with two co-founders as opposed to your working relationship with Lauren.
Lauren, go first.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say that finding a co-founder can be really, really hard, and it can take years to find the right person. So, and a lot of times sometimes it's serendipitous too. So my backstory with Mahima is that Mahima and I actually met as 19, 20-year-olds in college. And we knew very little about startups, and both of us went to school on the East Coast. We weren't familiar with necessarily tech startups, so to speak, but at the time, we were doing something, this goes back to purpose, that was very non-purposeful. So Mahima and I were kind of interns on the mortgage-backed security trading desk at Bank of America, and it was not very mission-driven, at least for us. And so the cool part was that summer, Bank of America had this really incredible startup program where they allowed interns to create a startup idea and pitch it to the company and potentially get funding. And so Mahima and I partnered up on that. And we ended up getting our first check from that experience, our first funding, so to speak. And it was from that experience that we were like, wow, maybe we could do this for real someday. And that was when we started to have the aha moment of, hey, how cool is it that when you start a company, people actually are willing to pay you to do that? Venture funding, yes, thank you, Veni, and all the teams that do that. And then B, that her and I could potentially be co-founders of a company together. And so long story short, we stayed in touch over the years. We both lived in New York together and paralleled paths in finance, later moved to San Francisco, paralleled paths in fintech. I was at Stripe, she was at Square. And the thing that brought us together was, I would say, two things. One is very complementary skill sets. I think that's really important for co-founders is Mahima, her background is in product as a product manager. And my background has been in go-to-market, in sales, in really driving business to the company. And that was what led us to say, we actually have these very complementary skill sets that together can form a company. And then the other piece that, again, we keep going back to these P's, right, is purpose. And for Mahima and I, both of us knew we wanted to start families. Our friends were kind of going through that experience ourselves. And we knew that we wanted to use our background in fintech to help families. Exactly how we were going to do that, we didn't discover till later by talking to hundreds of parents actually who went through the experience of starting families and realizing that leave was this massive, massive pain in the butt. But that core mission of helping families, because it was something that we were going through and not having to make those trade-offs, remained and continues to remain to this day.
Yeah, let me add just one point here, and promise, Lauren, I'm not going to reveal anything too sensitive. But I love this question because it helps to shine a light on another part of the journey in 2023. So as lightning was striking and the winds were picking up and the ship was, I'm kind of mixing metaphors now, but as all this was playing out, the very natural challenges that come in very intense relationships like co-founders, similar to marriages, right? We've all sort of heard that before and thought of it that way. We're starting to sort of identify some tension that needed to be directly addressed. And so in addition to my coaching work directly with Lauren, one of my colleagues has been coaching Lauren's counterpart and co-founder Mahima, and we decided we needed a 2x2. This was not just couldn't rely on like, all right, you talk and then we'll talk back about this next week. No, we needed to get everyone in the room together. And so we did a couple of sessions that were specifically in the kind of most challenging moments. What's going on here between the two of you, and how can we get these conversations and challenges surfaced, addressed, and processed in a way that's going to allow everyone to move forward together?
How about one last question? And I'm seeing hands. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and ask this. And this is for Veni and for Lauren. So I'm curious about Cocoon. I mean, you talked about 2023 and the crisis you went through there and the whiplash and all that. How many employees do you have now? And you did mention that it's now become a very scalable platform. I'm just wondering, does that mean that you may be turning back to Veni sometime where you may need to have additional capital in order to continue to grow the business?
Yeah. Well, we're very lucky to have Veni and team very deeply embedded with Cocoon in so many ways. I think Chrissy mentioned this earlier. Cocoon is ADP's strategic partner for leaf management as well. So in addition to being an investor, board observer, ADP is also a really, really meaningful distribution partner to us, and also, frankly, a product partner in terms of how we integrate, for example. So all of that's really critical. Today, we're about 50 employees at Cocoon, and as we grow and as we scale, certainly that's our goal, is to continue to bring Veni and the ADP team along with us throughout the journey. And I think that's part of the power of alignment, where a lot of what I like to talk about with, I think, corporate VC in particular, and Veni, I'll let you expand on this, is that there's innovators and then there's distribution, right? And I think what's really powerful about partnering between a startup and a large corporate is that you can connect the two. And that involves capital, that involves product collaboration, that involves distribution collaboration. It's the whole gamut. So absolutely. And we're incredibly grateful and proud to have ADP as our partners along the way.
Thank you, Lauren. I'll add just a little bit more color to that. So, essentially kind of what Lauren, highlighted, right? The uniqueness about corporate venture capital is we're operating in the exactly same segment. So we will always be bullish on it. And because we're always bullish on it, we are fully incentivized to make sure that the investments we are doing, the partnerships we are picking up, they are set up for success. And so, whether that means getting more capital for additional resources, whether that is distribution, whether that is product support, we want to create that environment because the alignment is so close that if Cocoon wins, that is when we really win as well. This can sometimes be a little tricky, when you're in a financial VC, because, you can kind of start looking at other industries too. So I think, with that, it's been wonderful to partner with Cocoon overall.
Right.
I'm going to give you this to hold for the photo.
Oh.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, David. Thank you, Veni. Please give them a round of applause.